Yep.
United Nations conferences where indigenous people had their first speeches
Yep.
in the end of the 70s. And shortly before that, I guess, I did some research in our archive, and I found one mentioning in one of the very old issues of our magazine where the World Council of Indigenous People and Arthur Manuel was named.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that was before I started to work here, so that contact must have been with our boss, who retired last year, Tilman Zürich, and Arthur Manuel.
Oh,
and
wow.
As far as I can remember, that was shortly before, or a year maybe. I don't really know how much before it was. Before the Constitution Express came to Germany, there was a pre-team at our office in Göttingen.
Yep.
And that was, I think, the contact Arthur Manuel made with us. He sent them to our organization, that's how I recall it, to ask for help to organize the stay of the Constitution Express in Germany. And so that is how I know it, but I never met him in person. I just don't know the name.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize he was involved in that way, actually, back then.
Yes.
Wow.
I think it was that way. And then my boss decided to support this project of the Constitution Express, and then the work started to make contact then in Bonn, which was the capital of Germany in those days still.
Yep.
Not Berlin yet. And trying to find people who want to meet the group, and media work, press conferences and all that was following after that.
Right. And so just going back a bit, so when did you join the Society for Threatened Peoples? You said you had just started there around the time of the Constitution Express?
I started working with the organization as a volunteer in 77. And the Constitution Express was my first job as a paid person.
Oh, wow.
A couple of years later. So I started with, we call it Pan-Indian delegations.
Yep.
Which means that in 77 and again in 78, following the Geneva conferences, the Society for Threatened Peoples invited groups of natives from, I think, from all over America, from Alaska down to Chile, to represent their people during a tour through Germany, where they had speeches and they had evening events and had meetings with press people and with politicians and foundations and so on, and had the opportunity, I think, in the German-speaking Europe for the first time ever, to show the public that Indians are not Hollywood Indians and are not Karl May Indians or literature figures, fiction figures, but living people, living personalities with real existing problems and no stereotypes. And this was happening in 77 and in 78, and the organizers of the society were looking for local groups to organize events in their respective towns. And being a student in those days in Göttingen, I joined one of those volunteer groups, and we organized in 77 in autumn and again in spring, I guess, in 78, events for those delegations, and decided to just stay with this organization, first as a volunteer, and later on, when the organization as such moved to Göttingen, moved its seat to Göttingen. It was founded in Hamburg, but then moved to Göttingen, and I was living in Göttingen as well, so I joined, still as a volunteer, the group who was building up the office here. Yep. And later on, I just started to work there as a paid student, and then I started to work as a regular employee.
Wow. Oh, so those delegations that you're talking about in 77 and 78, those were from
Yes.
different indigenous nations all throughout the Americas?
Yeah.
Okay. And so they were just smaller groups who would come from, you said, from Alaska to Chile, and
No, it was
Or-
Canada, it was United States, it was Chile, Peru, Bolivia, Brazil, all over.
Wow.
And from Canada, one person I remember quite well was George Erasmus. I don't know if you
Yep.
know this name.
Yeah, of
He
course.
was later on, I guess, he was president of the Assembly of First Nations.
Yep.
He was one of the delegates who
Wow.
were our guest in those times.
And sorry, did everyone come at once, or this was smaller groups at different times? From the,
No, it was a whole group. Let me think. I think they split up into 2 or 3 groups while they were traveling, but the groups as such were a combination of delegates from different countries,
Oh, okay. Wow.
which was on the one hand good for the public to see the how manifold those cultures are, those peoples are, those delegations are. But I think it was as well a good experience for the delegates themselves to see the situation of other natives in other countries.
Yeah, definitely. To start, building those relationships and having some exchange between indigenous peoples. Wow.
Yes, solidarity and so on.
Mm-hmm. And so you were a student. What motivated you to become involved? How did you become involved as a volunteer?
Well, as a volunteer, you just do what has to be done. No special responsibilities, but that was everything from doing the mail to making phone calls or just keeping the office running. But later on, when I became involved as I don't know how to say that in English. You're a student and you get paid a low salary, well, because you are a paid student who does a job.
Like an intern, I think. Like an intern, maybe.
Yes, but a paid intern.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds something like that, yeah. That was when I got the job from my boss to be involved in the team organizing the Constitution Express in Bonn. And when that was finished, I changed my field of work to the editorial board of our magazine.
Yep.
And then I worked for about 20 years as editor of the magazine. And then about 12 years ago, I changed back to be responsible for the Indigenous Peoples department in the fields of the Americas and Australia.
Okay.
That is what I'm doing now.
Okay. But why did you become involved? Was there a particular reason that motivated you, got you involved in the first place?
It was interest and curiosity in a way for the way other people live.
Yep.
On the one hand, on the other hand, I grew up with the idea from my parents. I was taught by my parents to regard other ways to live, other languages, other countries, other philosophies as something positive, as something enriching their own way of life. And so I was just very interested to see and to learn and to experience this. And then I was, when I was still in school, I think, yes, in the beginning of the 1773 around, there was a huge huge activities of the American Indian movement in the United States.
Yep.
They did some very powerful actions of protest who were even in the media in Germany, and made me curious. And so when I got the invitation to organize this Pan-Indian delegation event, I was really interested to be a part of this project, and that was the start from which everything else evolved.
Wow. And then the Constitution Express would have been such an incredible way to, I don't know, as a kind of introduction, as your first paid job related to this.
Yes, and it was my first project that I had to. I'm just searching for the words. I'm not used to speak English anymore.
Yeah, no problem.
Where I was responsible for myself, yes, mainly, and first time that I was responsible as well to hold a press conference, for example. I never did that before.
Yeah.
Or to meet high-level politicians in the capital of Germany, what I did not do before. But that is only one aspect. The other aspect, more important, I think, was just meeting, being together with, getting to know of the delegation and the members of the delegation and what they were talking about and what their problems they were talking about. Was my first time being so close to this kind of problem is not the right word, but I can't think about anything better right now. Yes.
Right. And so
I did not.
Sorry, go ahead.
I did not know too much before about Canada and the situation in Canada. My only experience before was this Pan-Indian delegation, where some people from the Dene Nation, then Dene Nation, were part of. And so it was, for me as well, an experience to see how easy the government tried to just get rid of basic native rights by just changing the constitution and thinking that is it, getting rid of all their own responsibilities by just changing the constitution and telling the people it is to their own good, because then all Canadians are the same and nobody is different from anybody else, and thinking it's good and as a positive thing, which is, to my opinion, not the way. It's not true, because you have to respect the differences to be one and not ignore them.
Yeah, so I have so many questions about everything you just said. Before the Constitution Express, I mean, did you know what Canada was trying to do with patriation? Or how did Indigenous peoples who were involved in the Constitution Express kind of educate the Society for Threatened Peoples about what was going on and what needed to be done?
I think it's a letter. As I remembered, it was a letter.
Okay.
Thing, yes. At least for me as a person, I didn't know before. Because before I was, I think, well, it's so long ago, but I think I was rather naive. More likely, I was rather naive and was following the good, positive, liberal image Canada had, and I learned a lot by all those things I learned from the delegates in the delegation.
Right, so a letter would have come from probably the Union of BC Indian Chiefs or from George Manuel himself, seeking help and explaining what was going on?
I can't remember anymore exactly persons who was talking, who was telling or teaching what.
Yeah.
It's just my general impression that starting from the preparations for the Constitution Express coming to Germany, we got information that we needed to start the media work.
Yep.
To interest journalists to come, you have to give them some information, and we had to get those information first ourselves by the preparation team. So that was the first level of learning. And what I did not know in those days, for example, was that the Canadian Constitution was a British law.
Yep.
And those backgrounds of Royal Proclamation and the treaty process in Canada and all this was new to me, and I am sure not only to me, but I think that it was rather unknown in Europe as a whole.
Right.
So that is why I wrote to you that to me the Constitution Express was the start of the international work of Canadian First Nations, Native Nations, however you call it, for their bringing their rights, their fights for their rights to Europe.
Yeah, that I thought
the struggle for the rights.
Yeah, what you said in that email I thought was quite beautiful. The first big initiative to make the struggle for First Nation self-determination known in Europe. And I think that's right. I think it was really groundbreaking in that sense. And so, but you also mentioned, so it was the connection between your founder, I guess your boss who recently retired, and George Manuel that would have initiated or sort of got the Society for Threatened Peoples involved in supporting the Constitution Express, right?
That is how I remember it, but I do not know how those two got in contact to each other. I don't know that. I'm not informed about that.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm perhaps asking too much historical detail. what I'd really like to know.
I was in the beginning of my 20s, 21 or 22 or something like that, so I was not the person to know about this historical aspect.
No, of course. But I more just sort of want to know how it then unfolded, and so it sounds like you had to very quickly learn, how to deal with media, how to deal with political officials. But sort of just what was it like? I mean, from then on out, I guess you started to scramble to make connections with journalists, etc., and then the organizing group would have come to sort of start setting things up with you, right? Sort of how did it unfold from there?
Let me think.
Well, so let me start with this. Who came to? It was the pre-organizing team who you mentioned came to your offices. So that would have been Lynn Crompton and Ron George?
Yes, I guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And they came for the first contact.
Mm-hmm.
Just one day they were just knocking at the door of our office and saying who they were and why they came.
Oh, wow.
And whether the organization, they introduced the project and asked whether we would help to organize the Express. And of course the decision was yes, Society for Threatened People will help. And then I think, if I remember right, that they came back again. But I don't really recall anymore who was doing what job then.
Yeah, no.
Long ago.
That's okay. That's amazing, though, that they just sort of came and knocked on your door.